All right. Welcome everybody. This is our 25.3 release highlights live stream. I'm going to be your host today, James Lee, Director of Product Evangelism here at Appian. We've got a great program coming up today talking about some of the newest highlights in the release. Before we get started, I wanted to introduce the people joining me today as well. I've got Mark Talbot, Director of Architecture here at Appian, as well as Reed Biondo, who's also a solutions consultant here at Appian. And we're going to be talking about all types of exciting things have come out in the latest release. Mark, of course, is one of our specialists in AI implementations. He's done a lot of AI implementation projects here at Appian, and Reed helps with a lot of our federal customers and everything in a pre-sale standpoint, talking about the value they can get out of Appian when they're looking to explore and take advantage of the product. To give a little bit of a preview of what we're going to be talking about today, we're going to start off going through some features that I think developers are going to have quite a bit of excitement around, specifically some of the async evaluation of interfaces and UIs within Appian, how that can give you a lot more of a performant experience. Going into smart search as well, talking about how that can be implemented both in interface as well as process to provide you some really great value and use cases, putting AI on top of Appian's data fabric. And then Mark is going to be covering a lot of exciting details around the runtime prompts and how you can use that to do even more valuable use cases around AI in process that go even beyond intelligent document processing. So a little bit of a preview ahead, so bear with us. We've got a lot of exciting things. And if you have any questions during or want to kind of shout out, where you're from, what you're interested in learning more about, make sure to put that in the chat for the YouTube and everything. We'll be looking at the chat, answering any questions that come up as we go, but we definitely want to make this participation and engagement and everything. So please be sure to use that. And we look forward to touching base with you there. Before we get into the topics, I did want to do one kind of public service announcement. We talked about this in the 25.3 product announcement webinar, but an important announcement for anyone who is a self-managed customer, that 25.3 is going to be our last release of non-containerized Appian, meaning starting in 25.4, all self-managed releases will use Appian Kubernetes. So it's definitely something you want to be tracking for, either to have a talk with your account executive about moving to Appian Cloud, or looking to, if you're not already running Appian on Kubernetes self-managed, start looking at that. But the thing I want to start the conversation with Mark and Reed is, the exciting thing that Kubernetes provides for our self-managed customers is more parity with Appian Cloud, because Kubernetes allows us to deploy in self-managed installations, either on-premise or third-party clouds, in the same way that we deploy on Appian Cloud. So, late last year, we were able to, for example, offer Appian RPA to self-managed customers when previously that was cloud exclusive. And in 25.3, we're now enabling you to deploy AI self-managed. So you can use our co-pilots, our IDP, and upcoming agents as well, all from self-managed environments. So Mark, I'll kick it over to you first. You work with so many customers, helping them get their AI, projects into production. What are your thoughts about kind of bringing this capability self-managed? What have you kind of heard through some of your touch points out there in the field?
Right. I mean, it's extremely important in the public sector, Department of Defense. We hear about in financial services, almost across industries. There's a lot of appetite for leveraging self-managed AI with Kubernetes. So it's going to be exciting to see this in the field.
Yeah, for sure. And Reed, Mark mentioned public sector specifically, and I know you work with a lot of those clients day to day. What have you heard kind of in some of your touch points and everything about what people are particularly interested in use for, and maybe where they're having challenge getting access to AI in their regulated environments today?
Yeah, I think off the bat, it's a non-starter. If they're in cloud, they have these specific requirements. They have to be where they are, and they can't even look beyond that. So when we come in screaming from the hilltops, hey, you can have a little more, being on premise is really exciting for them, because they have ideas just like all of our other customers that they want to implement. So when we come in and say, hey, you can have your AI, you can have your RPA on premise, it's exciting.
Yeah, for sure. So for any of you self-managed customers who are interested to get any advantage out of Appian AI, be sure to check out that migration toolkit we linked in the chat. That's going to be your kickstart and how you can get your self-managed environment onto Kubernetes, or better yet, connect with your account executive about Appian Cloud. If you're looking to have it more managed by Appian, the upgrades, the installs, all the maintenance, and the feature availability, that's a service Appian provides, and a lot of our customers do deploy into our cloud. So it's definitely something worth checking out there. But with that kind of cover some of the initial PSA. Let's get right into the agenda, starting with interfaces. And when we're thinking about interfaces, and we have a bit of a experience and demo we can show here, what we're talking about is basically everyone has kind of designed these different dashboards, case experiences, et cetera. But sometimes what you'll have in the experience is something that's slow, right? It could be something that is reaching out to an external web service that's very slow. You could have some complicated queries and everything in order to populate a particular KPI in the dashboard. And what you'll typically notice when you're building interfaces within Appian and everything is that if you do have that slow component, oftentimes the page won't actually paint, is what kind of the technical term, if it is technical. It won't paint until all those components have loaded together. And that's what I kind of have here. I've actually been using Appian's site rule inputs to allow me to say that this is not using the new feature. So you'll notice as I load this page, I made this dashboard artificially slow by adding a very slow rule to it and everything. It was actually pretty tough to make. I was joking with Mark about this. I was having trouble making it slow enough, but you see that everything kind of pops into frame at once there. So I have to kind of, if I'm using this dashboard day to day and it has this one slow thing, I can't even touch the dashboard until that one slow thing kicks in, because then everything else paints into picture. But what if I wanted it to be something where that part can just continue to load and render as is and everything, but then the rest of the page that is ready to show to me, I can start interacting with it? That's something that we've been working on over the past year, rolling it out to particular capabilities like grids, charts, and KPIs. But now we're so excited to make that a more generalized capability that you can apply to any types of components on those core dashboards. So you'll notice if I change the URL here to just say is async is now true, this interface is now going to behave differently with the way I've kind of set it up. And so now you can actually see it's popping into frame much quicker. And that one calendar that I made particularly slow, it pops in at the end. So now I can actually start seeing the page, interacting with it when components are ready versus when the slowest component is ready. So Mark, you've been doing implementations for so long. What do you think is going to be the impact of this capability? What are some of those horror stories you've sometimes seen on projects where you have a very slow web service or a very slow calculation or something? How could this deliver impact in those types of projects?
I mean, it's going to make immense impact to our business users, because no longer you have to wait for that slowest interface to run or that slowest web service to run. And oftentimes you need to integrate with downstream or legacy systems that just simply take 20 or 30 seconds to load. And that's part of doing modernization or digital transformation. You're replacing these legacy systems, and sometimes you do it piecemeal. And I mean, I think this is going to have an immediate impact. I mean, this is a feature we've been asking for in the field for years, and it's great that product was able to deliver on this. So very happy.
Sure. And one thing I especially love about when product delivers, right, is that they don't just kind of deliver something that works, but they make it really elegant in the way it's integrated. So to take a look at that, let's jump and see how this interface is actually defined. Now, this is going to be no stranger to developers. When you're making a nice, rich interface like this, you're going to have quite a bit of components and SAIL expression behind it. But for our developers on the call and everything, you're likely already familiar with the concept of a refresh variable or a bang refresh variable, where you can wrap the value that you're retrieving in a wrapper function and everything, and then set certain parameters like, when should this refresh? Should I refresh when this variable refreshes? Should it refresh when I do this action? Giving you control about when we're actually reevaluating that, which can be important. You don't want it to refresh too frequently if it's hitting like a database or end service that you don't want to overwhelm, especially if you have a lot of users sharing the same dashboard. So that control becomes important. The ability to enable this asynchronous loading, it behaves the exact same way, where when you're setting a variable value, you just wrap it in this abang async variable, and then you pass the value in there. And now when that variable is used just across the interface and everything, if it is not ready to be used data-wise, you're going to see what you saw with that card, where it's going to have a bit of a loading animation or anything while the rest of the page paints in. So Reed, I know oftentimes you're kind of introducing people to the design experience in Appian as part of the pre-sales process. And so what do you think of this overall, the ability for it to kind of all share those same building blocks and concepts? How does that differentiate from some of the experiences people can tend to be used to when working in different development platforms?
Yeah, like right off the bat, when I see this, my first thought is one of the biggest challenges is getting IT and business in the same room, jiving together, working together, right? And sometimes IT's hands are tied. There's only so much they can do to make something progress faster, moving along faster. So sometimes you have to turn to outside tools to move things along, or you try and go somewhere else. So when it comes to having one platform that you can come to get everything done, and it's in a familiar fashion, right? I think Appian does a terrific job of keeping everything in that same form, where we hand you a new tool, it's going to be familiar to the prior tools you've used. So it makes it all easier when business and IT have to come together and figure these things out. They already have a tool set they can turn to.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And some of the ways I position as well is that, IT, it's always being asked to do more with less. And when I say do more, it's not just more projects, but it's more skills, right? Because not only do you have to be a database administrator and an integration expert and interface designer, process expert, now you got to pick up whole new concepts like generative AI and RPA and process mining. And it's like, how do you fit all those competencies into single individuals? A lot of organizations just end up not doing that, right? They'll just have all these specialist teams and have them work together. And that introduces slowdown, that introduces delays and issues with ways of working that can make it difficult to deliver end-to-end products. So I've always enjoyed working with Appian for so many years at this point and everything, that it's the same skill set in all these different disciplines, right? You can use those same competencies, using the same expressions, same logical building blocks, everything interoperates. It makes it a lot smoother and easy. I did want to go to the chat. I see that, for example, one person shouting out Composer. We won't have too much to touch on Composer here, but we are equally excited about it. We saw some great innovations with Composer in the 25.3 release, now allowing you to not only model your user stories and database, but also your interfaces and generate that all into a functioning app. So if you're excited to get hands-on with Composer as well, I definitely encourage you to check out Appian Community Edition. We have it available with the latest capabilities inside of Community Edition, so check it out there. It's a great way to get hands-on, and of course, any of our community users can access it. And then I did see one other question. Will Appian be introducing transparent or semi-transparent text boxes that blend into the background like frosted glass anytime soon? So this is a great question. I don't have a demo set up with this right now, but we did actually get a chance to announce in our 25.3 release this ability to do the semi-transparent cards, which I think is a very exciting capability. So let me see if I can actually find it in a card layout here. I'm trying to see if I can pick out the capability just on the fly here. But I believe it is, I'll have to double check. It might be something in the style. Yes, I think it's that. If you see here, to add transparency, this is kind of getting back into, for those of you who've had exposure to CSS or working with hex colors, we oftentimes are using 6 elements for our hex colors. And, hex, hexadecimal, that's why you got like Fs and numbers in there and everything. But you can add 2 more to define transparency. So now for card backgrounds, we support setting that transparency so you can get some of that background coming through for a more modern experience. It might not go all the way to that glass morphism and things you see like in Mac OS and all that type of stuff, but I've seen some really exciting demos on that. I'm sure, Reed, I don't know if you've had a chance to check out that capability, but that ability to kind of have more transparent floating on backgrounds, that's probably going to be really exciting for the demos you make.
I mean, we love anything that makes everything look prettier, right? You got to surface something, a public-facing interface, and you just want to blend right into what you already have. Things like this go a long way.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. I'll take one more chat before we switch gears over to Smart Search, but is Composer available only for premium customers? So one important thing to know about Composer is right now it's available in preview. So it hasn't become generally available yet, but the best place for you to get hands-on with it right now is in Appian Community Edition. So check out Appian Community Edition, start using Composer. We'd love to hear what you think about it and if you can see the value there, but we're really excited to continue investing in Composer. We think generative AI is going to provide immense value for accelerating how you build applications and how you iterate on applications as well. So we couldn't be more excited for the Composer investment and really tying that all together and really transforming how people can go from 0 to 1 with those ideas to applications overall. But with that, let me go ahead and pull into our next topic here around Smart Search. And this is kind of keeping in the expression view, but my figuring is that with this developer audience and everything, you guys are certainly going to see the power that this capability has in connecting those different dots. So what is Smart Search, right? Smart Search, it became generally available in 25.3. We announced it in preview in our .2 release and have already seen several production customers get up and running with great valuable solutions using it. But the value that Smart Search provides, and it's something that I'm sure all of you guys are familiar with ever using a search engine, but sometimes you're searching for something and you're not looking for that exact match. You're looking for something that is semantically similar, to use the nerdy words, or it's like sort of what you were looking for and everything, but might not have that exact match. So how do you actually find that within your records, within your documents and everything, and then use that information for any number of use cases? Maybe you're making it a search for your interfaces so that if someone's searching for a support case or an incident case or something, they can find things that didn't exactly match your search, but were pretty similar intent. Or you can even do things that are more automated. right? So if you have, for example, new cases coming in for case management, you could automatically see, hey, do we have any cases that were similar to this? And as part of your process, find related cases and attach those related cases to the case so that your case engineer, your case analyst and everything can kind of look in there and be like, oh, I see that we maybe solved a similar incident before. Let me see how we did that, and I can go ahead and resolve it that way. So that's kind of the background about where you can apply this, and Appian makes it so easy. I'll see if I can like pull up the record here real quick, and again, just jumping right into it. But when you have Smart Search enabled, you can just simply select some of those text and document fields that you have in your record and everything. Just check the box, and then those are going to keep their own version of a sync history. That's in addition to syncing all the data to say, how is the indexing being synced? So if you don't know how these types of things work under the hood, Appian's managing all of that for you. It's managing the vector database, the chunking strategy, embedding strategy, all these complex concepts. You just get to check the box, say, this is what I want to do, and then Appian's going to handle that complexity for you. Once you do that, you just use it like anything else you would in your record field or your query syntax, right? So as you can see here, I've got an example, but I'll kind of deconstruct it a bit so you can see exactly how it works. So when I'm starting on my base record, I can actually find the search results. And then those is what allow me to actually go in and see, am I looking across all my different search fields? Do I want to just pick the guest name or the incident description as well? And I can access right into that. Once you have that, there's actually two different things you can find. One is a similarity score. That's a score from 0 to 1 about how similar the content is to your search term. And then the source content, which is equally important. This is a citation to where in the text that similar information was found. And so just to see an applied example here, this is like an incident thing for a hotel or something where like people are trying to check in. So I'm saying I'm having issues checking in, right? I could just put that into my search term, give it a test. And let me see. Let's see. Having problems with check-in. Might have put the similarity a bit high. There we go. So here I'm having some examples. Lodge check-in delayed due to a system outage. Reservation name misspelled at check-in desk. So it's finding me some of these things that are kind of similar to what I described and everything, but aren't an exact match. But what you can see is that with the addition of the record I get, I also get this map of search results that provides the source content that was similar and that similarity score. And I can use this just like record field detail. If I want to put this in a progress bar to say this is how similar it was, if I want to display this citation to an end user or note it when I relate the case, this is the part that we found similar, all that's accessible to me wherever I'm using this across Appian. And you can even use it in the definition of the query where I can set filters. That's why nothing came back at first, because I had a filter that was more exclusive to say it has to at least be a 0.5 out of 1 match. Or I can even sort on the similarity scores, say like, sort these descending, which one's the most similar. So I hope that gives you a little bit of a breakdown. But Mark, and all the projects you've been kind of working on AI implementations, have you seen interest or have people expressed interest of where they could actually apply things like Smart Search inside of their processes?
Yeah, the use cases are numerous. I mean, the first one that comes to mind, again, in the public sector is case deduplication. So, for example, if you have case management app for your citizens, and let's say there's a pothole in one of the roads. So you might get many different support cases, again, are different lexically, but have the same semantic meaning. It allows you to deduplicate those use cases: hole in the road, pothole, damaged road, cracked road, all as the same similar use case. So that way you don't have to have the manual person come in and merge those cases together. Very powerful. I mean, there's use cases in case management where, again, you use that Smart Search to search your knowledge base and provide a recommended solution based on your knowledge base, based on past history. And we'll talk about this later, but this is what Appian support does when they triage cases or when they make that a first attempt at answering your support case or support ticket.
Yeah, absolutely. And Reed, to piggyback off of that, obviously you spend a lot of time and energy conveying Appian to people who might be unfamiliar. So how is this going to provide an advantage to you? What are some of the things that maybe this will allow you to kind of explain better or show better about the power of Appian for doing kind of process automation, case management, all those types of things?
Yeah, I think one of the benefits of working with Appian, and sometimes one of our weaknesses, is all of the data that we're able to bring together. Right, you can connect hundreds upon hundreds of tables, and then it begs the question of, well, how do I find the right data that I'm looking for? So sometimes we're looking at contract vehicles and somebody needs to compare two contract vehicles and go side by side and find similar contract vehicles that they want to work with. Other times it's investigative cases, right? And there are hundreds of these and they may live in different data storage systems with different data in different places. So by aggregating and connecting that data together and then being able to find the things that are relevant, maybe they're different, investigative cases that we found they have similar evidence, for instance. Maybe they're connected in some way. So you can start to see how quickly it goes from, oh, this is just technology to, oh, wow, now I'm finding, some commonalities in these investigations or in these business IT problems or these contract vehicles to help me actually get my work done, which is super exciting.
Yeah, that's such a great point. I always bring this up too. As we get more systems and we get more granular technology, it just proliferates the amount of data we have to deal with, right? And that can be challenging when trying to do these complete solutions. And Appian Data Fabric being so powerful, also, you're right, it brings it all these different systems into one ontology. And it's like, that's a lot to wrangle with. I will say one thing I also think about looking, downrange and everything is how valuable this will be to AI agents, right? Because AI agents will want to find, oh, I have a task. Have I done a similar task before? Was I assigned a similar thing previously? And they can go and find examples of cases they've solved or claims they've helped with and everything, review the sequence that agent took at the time to resolve that and use that as information. Maybe I should use these tools or everything. I know I'm personifying the technology a lot, but it's going to behave like a person. This is exactly what we do. If I'm get a new case and I think I've done something like this before, I'm going to go look what I did before rather than reinventing the wheel every time. So even applying that to more of your agentic automation can be super powerful as well. Awesome stuff. We did have one other note here or question. I noticed that card layouts support transparency. So good. We did cover that there early in the interface bit, but text boxes and drop downs still have solid white backgrounds. Are bringing this ability to the input fields. I don't have anything to announce as far as the input fields and everything, but one thing I can tell you, we're going to share these comments with our product management team. So if this is something that you're interested in or looking forward to, we're going to get that feedback to the right people and everything so they can have that type of stuff on the radar. But appreciate you sharing with us the ideas of like what you kind of want to build as far as modern interface design with Appian. But with that, I think we covered quite a bit of ground here between the interface design and smart search, a lot of great tools. But I'm really excited to get into the meat and potatoes I really wanted to cover in this live stream, which is runtime prompts. So with that, Mark, I know that we've been talking a lot about this. You've been seeing some really exciting advantages for using runtime prompts, how we can apply it to not only augment intelligent document processing, but do so many different types of use cases of AI applied in process. So Mark, let me hand it over to you. Why don't you talk to us a little bit about what runtime prompts are and how it can provide value to people when getting value out of AI?
Sure, and I'll also walk you all through a short demo of leveraging runtime prompts. So one of the first advantages of runtime prompts, it allows us to pass in a prompt with a document. So previously there were workarounds to be able to extract information from a document with the current prompt builder. And what you would have to do is you would have to extract the entire text of the document, store that somewhere, and augment the prompt with that text. But now that workaround is no longer necessary, and I can show you all what you'll need to do to make those changes into your app. It's going to be more memory efficient. I expect it to perform better once you make these changes to have the runtime prompt. So in this demo, what I put together was a claims management application. And what that claims application management does is that it receives incoming claims for trip insurance. And in this use case, different customers might have different policies. And that makes sense, right? So if an insurance company manages policies for multiple credit cards or multiple airlines, there's going to be different policies in place. So for example, a claim might come in and you have the description of the claim that came in from the customer and you have the policy itself. Well, what you can do is you can generate a recommendation based on the text in the document. It's going to tell you if it's reimbursement eligible, whether or not it's improved, and why it's reimbursement eligible. Now, again, previously, what you need to do before you had the runtime prompts is you would have to essentially combine, again, the text of the document with your prompt. And again, as a developer and as an architect, I just didn't like this workaround because it put so much text in your process variables, which in certain environments can take up a lot of memory. And that's essentially what I did. I took the whole text of the policy, said that was policy information, took the whole claim description, and I said that that was the claim information. Now, what you can do with runtime prompt is you can actually adjust the prompt in your document itself. So I have the prompt, right? So this used to go in the prompt on the application. I can tell it what I want extracted. And then what I can do is I can append the information from the claim to the prompt. So again, you have the runtime prompt here instead of the old way of doing the prompt. So really cool feature. I mean, it's one of the ones that we've been, again, on the CS team have been asking engineering for ever since Prompt Builder came out. I mean, it's super powerful. So, I mean, this flow, the previous flow, I don't need anymore since I have the runtime prompt.
Yeah, I love that. And, there's so many things that this really unlocks for us as well. And, one thing I'll also call out, Mark, and it's great kind of being able to see how you can bring this right into your experiences. But you can even see on the interface, like being able to get this structured JSON, you can always unpack that and use that in just any kind of display or programmatic way and process. It's so valuable. But the number of use cases are really innumerable here. I'll give some examples that I think of from my side. Conversation I have often with people is, thinking about rules engines, right? Rules engines, these can be really complex stacks of policies and information turned into programmatic details, right? About like if this, then that and everything. And so a lot of times you want that to be deterministic, but sometimes the rules change so frequently, case by case or item by item, that you can't make it programmatic. So you're kind of forced to have a person there going and evaluating the policy and the latest policy and details of the case in order to make these kind of judgments and determinations. But to your point, Mark, and everything, if you could like take the document that here's the details of the policies and everything that we adhere to, and here's the details of this particular case, can you recommend the next best action that we can follow for this thing? And of course, what process affords you is if you want the human to review that recommendation every time, the person can be there right in the workflow. But now you can start tackling these things where the rules engines might have just been too cumbersome for IT to keep up with, or just too diverse and everything to actually codify. Reed, I'm curious, is this something you've also seen in conversations, people trying to build these very complex rules engines and maybe sometimes even not being able to and just relying on people to unpack the complexity?
Absolutely. And I think what's wonderful about working in Appian is we have that option, right? If you want to hand this to AI, hand the policy document, hand the data, have it make that determination, then send it to person, you can do it that way. A lot of the times what I've seen is people already have these rules engines built out. They know how to maintain them. They know how to work with them. But it's getting to that rules engine or getting the right information to that rules engine that's a challenge. Or like, which set of rules do we need to even use? And that's when the AI becomes really helpful, because it can sit as that like quarterback and decide, oh, I need to send it to this rules engine or this rules engine over here. So there's a dozen different ways to do it based on what your sensitivity is for how much control you want AI to have or how little control you want AI to have. And I think that's a wonderful part of it.
Yeah, that's such a great point, Reed, because a lot of times what we talk about is this like maturity model with AI autonomy. And I always try to describe people that the amount of autonomy you afford AI doesn't always describe how modern your organization or practices is being. A lot of it comes down to your risk tolerance of the use case, right? What is the cost of being wrong? What are the regulatory requirements here? But is it something where AI is involved or not involved at all? Is AI assisting a person and just making them more efficient? Is AI doing the work and then a person is reviewing it? Or is AI even orchestrating a whole bunch of steps in the process and everything? That's when you get into more of the agent type of behavior and everything to figure out what sequence of steps to actually follow. And each step you're affording the AI more autonomy, but it's at your discretion and Appian's providing the tools to do it, which I think is really powerful. It's something we don't hear as often when people are forced to rely on chats to do this type of thing, like to ask a chat about the next best action. Sure, that might work for the user, but now you're kind of pushing it out to the people and everything to make the determination about how they use it, versus when we bring it into process, now you have governance. So IT can say, this is how it's applied. Here's our thresholds and everything. Here's how we manage the exceptions. It provides you that control that you risk losing a lot of as you kind of just push things out to everyone. Mark, I'm curious, is this something you've also kind of heard as well in some of your conversations around AI implementations, that need for governance, that need for control around how the AI is applied, and how has process helped in those types of conversations?
Yeah, we hear about the same thing as far as chat goes, because when you have a chat, you have a different process for every end user that's out there. You don't have a way of improving the process through process insights or through monitoring. So almost all of the use cases that we're seeing in the field are AI agents in process, such as Prompt Builder, or such as the ones you see with Document Center, or even doing smart search in process. We see very, very few chat-based use cases in the field. And I think for that reason, it's difficult to control what end users are doing. It's difficult to improve. I mean, you get none of the advantages that you do with the workflows we've done in process across industries.
Yeah. And one last thing I will mention on that topic, and then I'll hand it back to you, Mark, if there's anything else you wanted to expand on with runtime prompts. But control is such an important aspect with AI. I think it's why you hear some of these statistics about so many AI project failures and pilot failures, is because there isn't sufficient control or governance to actually make it successful in a production setting. You can see great demos and great prototypes, but you can't make it work in production. But it's not just about the control, it's about the scale. One nice thing about putting it in process is you can delegate the work automatically or autonomously, just like all these other rules and integrations and robots that we use today. Whereas in a chat context, you're kind of forcing the person to be there to actually interact with it. So chat is going to have its value when it's augmenting people, but don't make it the only way you think about applying AI for value. A lot of ROI and value can be measured and implemented through process. And this should be exciting for all of our developers, because you guys are process experts. You know how to use process, you know how to implement these types of things. So it's another excellent tool in your tool belt to unlock value for organizations and the use cases you solve. So I'll toss it back to you, Mark. Was there anything else you wanted to expand on or talk about around runtime prompts, different use cases or different ideas people can be thinking about how they can use this new 25.3 capability to advantage themselves?
Right. Now, I'll go back to the document use case. I would say for customers already in production with document use cases, I would recommend switching back to the runtime prompt, especially if you're extracting the entire contents of the document and you have two sources of truth. So again, this is going to be changes for the better for customers that had a lot of our document center type of use cases.
Yeah, completely agree. And one thing as well about the document use cases, and I think this is some of the stuff we're going to be, looking to incorporate directly into our document center as well. But how can AI through runtime prompts evaluate the efficacy of AI? You know what I mean? How can you use actually AI to judge, did AI do a good job in the initial extraction, right? When we're trying to drive this kind of really straight through processing and autonomy, those types of feedback loops and checks and everything prove so valuable. And Mark, you've seen some of the worst documents and everything. These documents can get very complex, very difficult to deal with. It's some of the stuff that Appian has actually been providing differentiated value, being able to solve for some of these edge cases around, my document has too many pages, my document is too messy, the structure is too unformatted and everything. Reed, I might toss it back to you, some of the things you're hearing in pre-sales and everything around how you can kind of talk through Appian's document processing capabilities in the context of process and everything, and where people are finding maybe differentiated value using Appian process and IDP versus just using IDP as a standalone tool.
I think one of the benefits that a lot of customers are realizing by working within a process is that auditability of it. Right. They want to be able to see, maybe we had a process that was at 30% accuracy, and they want to see the difference. They have to report up to superiors, or they just need to track it for the sake of the improvement of their own organization. And they can see that it goes from 30 to 50 to even 75%, even upwards of that, depending on the documents they're working with. I recently had something come across my desk where we were trying to extract information from a document, and the numbers there were numbers off to the right, and they were vertical. And that's something AI is just biased against because it reads so much text horizontally. So using some tools out of the box in Appian, we were able to just simply rotate the document and extract that number on its own, and we were back up to 100% accuracy. So it's that kind of complete tool set sometimes that you really need, surfacing a document viewer so somebody can review it at the same time as the information that was extracted, and having all those different tools to rotate, move PDFs where they need to go really makes it a one-stop shop.
Yeah, I love that. And Mark, I'll toss kind of similar question to you. What is some of the differentiated advantage of Appian IDP you've been seeing in the wild as well? Because I think this is one of the best places to get started with using AI in process when you're kind of working with your journey. But how have you seen our advantage be kind of differentiated in helping customers generally?
Yeah, I mean, the first one's going to be accuracy. So I've even been working in conjunction with pre-sales for head-to-head bake-offs with other pure play IDP providers, and Appian simply gets better accuracy. I mean, the other thing is going to be that ease of use with Document Center. So we provide that guided wizard setup to extract information from documents and build the prompt that you need. And this was actually built through experience between product, between sales, between CS, taking the lessons learned from over 100 implementations to get that right prompt. And one thing I hear when talking to customers is, can you educate us on creating the best prompt? And the answer is yes, I can. But the answer also is that with Document Center, you don't need the education on the tools and tricks to build the best prompt, because Document Center already does that for you. So it's the ease of use. It's how quickly you can go from idea to an app that can go through UAT testing, QA on production. It's the ability to monitor your results, the ability to easily see how your recall, your precision, your F1 scores all in a simple dashboard. So tons of advantages. And if you've tried it with an earlier version of Appian, even if you've tried it with 25.1 or 24.4, we've made improvements in accuracy, and we continue to make improvements in accuracy with each quarter. So I would give it a shot.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. So if you aren't already have access to some of those AI capabilities and you're not on the advanced tier, definitely something to talk about within your org, within your account teams and everything, to see how you can get access to that. Because, Mark brought up a topic we were talking about earlier about minimizing the competency burden on IT, making it fast. But some of the other things I hear about as well when we're kind of in these, trying to figure out, is IDP the right fit? Sometimes the AI solution you're using, it's managed by a different team. So maybe if you want to make changes, you want to make iterations, it can be a 6-week turnaround. So again, thinking about how you can wield more power as an Appian developer can really advantage the value you deliver within organizations. So I think this has been really insightful. Mark and Reed, I really appreciate you guys covering all these types of topics with us. I think we're going to go ahead and touch on some of the call outs here that we have to wrap up the show. And the one that's top of mind for me is our UX design lab that's coming up. So we're going to be doing a UX design lab. This has been series we've been doing. It's so popular. I'm a big proponent of excellent UX within Appian. I think it always delights users and helps them understand the value that you're delivering with the solution. The theme of this one's going to be responsive and mobile design, which Appian provides a whole wealth of capabilities to make easy and excellent and everything, so that regardless of if you're looking at it on a phone or a widescreen or anything, that the user can have an excellent, well-formatted experience. So we can't wait to see what you come up with. Submissions are due on September 10th, with the live stream coming up on September 18th. So make sure to check the chat for your application form and everything. Submit those different ideas and responsive designs, and we'll be having our experts Jenny and Christine reviewing those and commenting those on the live stream. So we hope to have you tune in there. We're very excited for that. But with that, Mark, Reed, thank you so much again for joining me today. I think this has been such an insightful conversation, and I hope everyone who's joined has so many ideas about how they can apply AI inside a process to really deliver that differentiated advantage. So thank you again. Hope everyone has a great rest of their day.